Hello and welcome people back to the channel. Now, we thought we'd keep it kind of brief. You can go into a lot of detail with these sort of videos, but I think most people have already sort of touched on them. We're going to do mini podcast style, talk about our experiences of IEM Chengdu and sort of how the tournament went. I think it was, having spoken to a lot of friends, quite a few people didn't really catch that much of it. The timings were a little bit off. First game started like 5 a.m. UK time. Something or the call times like 5 a.m. UK time. By the time most people were waking up, it was based on like the last best of 3 of the day. So people that missed it in America, they were only catching the first game of the day and then missing the other 2 because of them going to bed and all the rest. So there's big gaps, people missed it, but we were there for the entirety of the group stages and of course caught most of the playoffs as well. So we thought we'd talk our way through it. Of course, it is your favorites, Robocop and Little Mermaid here for a little bit of a IEM Chengdu overview off the back of us working the B stream. Half mate, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. You know, it was a really nice event, to be fair. I think from our side, everything that we did was really sound. It was just, yeah, really excited to be there and be a part of it. And just the little things, you know what I mean? Getting into the after movie, seeing your name on the credits, things like that. You know, these are kind of milestone things for you and I a little bit, or at the very least to be fully involved. I think we were on like IEM Fall way back when, but yeah, you know, that's one of them online COVID-y events and
before we were a duo as well. So I was like
that's true.
3 years before, 2 years before we were a duo as well. I was working with Trav that one, and who are you working with then?
That is a great question. I think I had a little bit of Trav in there as well, to be fair.
Nice. Oh, that was an RMR as well, actually.
Retro potentially, you know,
maybe,
it was a bit of it was a wild ragtag bunch at that time. I think, you know, everyone just sort of
RMR in COVID. It was like kind of cursed.
And then it was also like an IEM event. You know, it's when they were like sharing all the RMRs around and stuff like that. You know, rather than having the major. So yeah, wild, but really, really good. Really good to be on Chengdu. To be honest, to bring it back in, and yeah, I'm happy with the product as well that we put out. You know what I mean? Like,
true.
We got a bit more of an opportunity when you cast in the bigger teams, especially when it can be a bit one-sided, you know, maybe the overdogs. You get these big moments, you get a few more opportunities to like flex your muscles a little bit, especially like in my case as a play-by-play, and then maybe in your case to get your name on a few of those plays as well. We do split a little bit, but also getting that knowledge out there and just showing to people that, you know, you watch the game and you are kind of legit. So hopefully the first of many.
Exactly. Hopefully you'll see us on a B stream soon enough, an IEM as well soon enough. Just to throw it back real quick to the IEM4, I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember when they were doing best of 6s as the qualifying? I don't know if you remember this, but I was doing, that's what my role was in IEM4 for that RMR, to see who went through and who didn't. If there was teams who were all tied on the same point, so they did best of 6s.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Okay. When
straight
you said
OT.
6, I thought you meant
no
6 maps.
No, sorry. Like basically they just dropped them into an OT. They did like a full veto. Full veto then into an OT. And that's when Movistar, like for some reason, people kept picking them on Nuke and they just beat like 4 teams in a row on Nuke. Good times. Either way, let's talk about Chengdu. Let's get up of course, the page itself and talk about what we know from it. So here it is, the IEM Chengdu, sort of everything, basically. We'll start off over on Group A. I feel like that's probably the best place to go with. Of course, we have G29Z, Liquid Heroic, Fury at Lin Vision, and then Tai Lu Mao's, and of course, the lower bracket games as well. Now, we weren't on the first games of the day, but they were at 5 a.m. UK time. So probably, you know, dodged a bit of a bullet there, in all fairness. They were pretty early. We basically got the 9 a.m. games UK time and the midday games, which are very reasonable. We're kind of used to working those all the time, so it was like a normal day at the office, basically. I mean, I do kind of feel a little bit for Lucy and Brandon. There's some early wake ups, right? It must be some quite weird like sleep schedules, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely credit to them. I think it's one of those things where, like, you know, sometimes at like my little part time or whatever, I'll have 8:30 until 2. It's not quite as bad.
True.
So when you're on these sort of early shifts, you still get the rest of your day. Like, you are up early, but you still get like the rest of your day. So, you know, it can be nice sometimes. You find yourself being like mega productive, especially again as what are we, serial 10 a.m. waker uppers, you know, when not working, which is not too bad, to be fair. There's maybe people that are a bit worse than that. But yeah, it's definitely credit to Brandon and Lucy getting up at that time and you know, having the energy to go and getting into it. And yeah, it can be a bit rough for sure. But the whole kind of event, I think, is a bit tough as well. You have to shout out the talent on the mainstream.
True.
They were obviously jet lagged. A lot of them had just been at the major. So, you know, that's also a different kind of beast. And then I suppose the same applies to the players as well, actually.
Yeah, exactly that. Now, off the top of my head, that's really bad, but I can't remember the exact game we won. Did we start on the best piece? I know we did 9Z heroic, but I can't remember if that was our first. Did we do?
Yeah, it will have been.
Yeah, so we actually didn't do any best of ones, right? Yeah, we went straight into the best of threes. And our first one was 9Z heroic. That was relatively one-sided. I think, looking through the majority of the results as well, the only real quote-unquote upset out the gates of maybe a result where when we started working where we thought that wasn't what we expected was actually probably maybe the Liquid heroic one. I probably would have gone into that, off the back of Liquid not even making the major and heroic making the major and looking okay. They weren't, brilliant, but they were at least, a major level team from EU, which is, I'll give them their credit. Liquid didn't even make it through the NARMR. So I probably would have always gone heroic as the favorites there, but Liquid actually had a really good run, beating heroic, then beating G2 as well. No joke from them. They actually made a fairly decent run of it. And of course, by beating the G2, they went directly into the quarters. So, yeah, for me, probably one of the biggest stories of the tournament was just Liquid looking a little bit more like themselves. Liquid back to at least a competitive sort of form.
Yeah, absolutely. Really solid kind of tournament from them overall, I suppose.
Yeah.
Not to get too ahead of it or whatever, but yeah, I think looking good, showing a bit more of that potential that we expected. Cadian playing a little bit better. There's a few things that are still a little scary for me. Your Kindar kind of underformed, not really being able to find themselves since ultimately joining this Liquid team for me, right? Obviously taking on the IGL mantle, which I think when we all heard that, we were like, what is...
Yeah, what's the thought process?
It really didn't make a lot of sense to pretty much anybody, but yeah, it was a difficult sort of time to watch Yekindar not playing to the level. I think he may well have lost it. The difficulty for a player like Yekindar as well for me is the fact that it's like this inimitable style, you know what I mean? Really, really difficult to read him in the VP days and figure out what he's going to be doing. Very versatile player, very unique way of approaching the game and approaching fights. And I just think that that's kind of been figured out a little bit now. And they've done enough work on him across the board. And then also, yeah, he's maybe not been doing that for so long. And he maybe doesn't have the same freedom to do that now under Cadian. So I feel like Yekindar's kind of the only thing that is worrying me a little bit. There's still one more move that's got to happen, right? Because Skulls is also finding it difficult to get comfortable in this Liquid team. So there's still another move that's got to happen before they can start contending for top 4 finishers, for top 5 in the world type thing. But definitely much improved.
Yeah, I gotta say with the Skulls one as well, it's quite annoying because I was a big fan of Pain and I have been for a while. So two individuals, Skulls and Zevi, I've loved both of them, and they've kind of since then not done a hell of a lot. Considering Pain have gone on to do really well, making the major somehow out of nowhere when I didn't even think they make it through the RMR. But yeah, Skulls in his his CT anchoring positions doesn't look that great. He looks a little bit out of his depth, and then on the T side as well looks lost. I don't know whether that's down to him individually, maybe trying to do a little bit too much, or Cadian not micromanaging him enough, or I don't know what it is, but at the moment he does look a bit out of his depth for a player who shouldn't be. In terms of his ability, actually is quite talented. I mean, from what I've seen of the lands I've done with him, he looks very, very confident. He just doesn't seem very confident anymore. So I'm hoping they find a way to fix it. But I think you're spot on. There's got to be some move, whether it's Yekindar, who I think he's probably the first head on the chopping block, not in the sense of him actually, in terms of his ceiling being worse than the likes of Skulls, but I think it's more just in terms of the current form. He is all over the shop, not looking great. T-sides have been lackluster from him, somebody who's meant to be one of the most, prevalent entries going. And I think now with kind of Twist back in this team, the combination of Twist and Naf being so good at the moment, it means he loses a lot of his kind of, I guess, favor, maybe with his positions on the CT side or whatever it is, but things aren't looking good for Yekindar. So I think probably he'd be the one for me. But still a decent run, right? Beat G2 2-1. They lost to Mouse, fair enough. I think Mouse at the moment are a really solid team. Obviously, they went on to end up being in the grand final, but the form that we've seen out of Mouse recently has been incredible for this group of youngsters. And we'll kind of come on them a little, touch on them in a little bit as well. And then for Liquid, even taking a map off FaZe in that matchup in the quarters, pretty good stuff, right? This is a FaZe side who were a little bit up and down throughout the tournament, but ended up obviously being the champions, winning it all overall. So I think for Liquid, from what was a lackluster RMR cycle, they've obviously done a hell of a lot of work since, which is good to see. This is a side who I think now heading in towards tournaments like Pro League, Blast London, etc. We actually have to keep an eye on them, because if they can continue to put up this form, be a playoff potential team, it adds another one to the fray, basically.
Yeah, Cadian is definitely working within this team. You know, it's taken a bit of time. There may well have been some issues with Bayern. They've obviously had a big revisit, and you have so much experience, obviously. But what the word that I'm looking for, kind of resilience, I think, within this team. You know, because you have Cadian, who's had this like really difficult career. You know, he was pro, and then he was like talent for a bit, and then he was back to pro, and then obviously it was a bit weird, the fallout of Heroic. They didn't quite know what was going on there, and even though he's not part of the project anymore, he's probably a bit sad to see, you know, what's happened, that he got removed, and then the Danish team kind of died off completely and whatnot. And then I think Twist and Naf as well have had many moves and many ups and downs. Obviously Twist being the most decorated NA player and probably the best NA player of all time. Naf as well, I think, is just wild that this guy has remained so consistent with his performances despite all these changes around him in leadership, in coaching, in the ability of the team. You know, they were once the top team in the world, I suppose. Stayed there for a little bit. So I think that they have a lot of resilience here. So I think that they're able to rebuild, and they have a lot of experience between the three of those players in terms of, okay, what's going wrong? How do we fix it? How do we buy into this project? And, you know, I don't think there's going to be a lot of checkout coming after losing out in the NARMR, not making the major. It's more going to spur them on. So still excited for what's going to happen here. I don't know, though. It's tough. Are they back to being the top team in NA? I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? I think for me are still more solid. That's about all I've got to say on Liquid. I don't know if you want to move on or if you've got anything.
Let's move on. Let's carry on with another high note as well. And I'm going to go over towards Group B for this one. Astralis. You know, the big question mark, and a lot of people online preying on the downfall, right? You know, Device takes the mantle of IGL. A lot of people, I'm not even gonna say myself included, because I didn't really know. I really didn't have it. I wasn't really. I'm not a Device hater. I don't really like Astralis the organization, but I actually like Device a lot. As the IGL, I thought originally when it happened, so the only thing I hated, right, about the whole thing was the whole like PR shtick at the HTV live show. That was hella cringe, especially being there in person. It was really cringe. You just knew it was just like some PR thing. I think Richard Lewis touched on it very, very well. He did a really good video on it, worth watching. How it's just like, it's just annoying, right? Just be honest, right? And the only good bit about the entire thing, the only thing that felt kind of like, you know, where we got to see a bit of personality was when Device accidentally said stabby, and it was like, wee, like it was like fun, it was funny. That was the only time we saw personality. The rest of it was like a robot. However, picking up the IGL, there was definitely a lot of people questioning it, and I think rightfully so, because it's not that Blame F is specifically a good IGL, it's that we've never seen what Device is like as an IGL. It's a big step up. It's a big change. And for this team as well, AWPing IGL, basically bar fallen. We don't love it. Yes, KD has moments, but it really does affect his performance times, as we saw at the RMRs with Liquid. I've never really loved AWPing IGLs all that much, just in the sense that I really think having a weakened AWPer can be a little rough. Device comes in, takes over the mantle. First game's 13-2 against Steel Helmet, whatever. Steel Helmet. They're like not even like a top 5 team in their own region. Mate. Yeah, literally.
On HL TV, they're like
I could think
they are now.
They are now, yeah, exactly. But I mean, you know, I could list off like 1,000,001 Asian teams that I'd rather have at the tournament than Steel Helmet. But obviously, it was a last minute thing. It was Monty couldn't get visas. Fair enough. I mean, if I'm right in saying, from what I read, 3 out of the 5 of Steel Helmet lived in Chengdu, so they're literally around the corner. Yeah. So it was like
it's a logistical thing.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. You know, these guys came.
There's be some hometown fans.
Yeah,
as well. I think
exactly.
If you're going to replace them with anyone, it should be someone who's a bit of fun, that maybe. Yeah, you know, younger fans in China have not had chance to see these guys play a decent kind of level.
Just throwing it out there as well. Captain Mo, you know, not really the greatest of players, but like a bit of a local legend. He's been around for a hot minute, so like it was kind of cool to see them. Anyway, 13-2 Astralis. We don't really care about that result. It's the 2-0 over FaZe which we care about. 13-7, 13-4. That was the first thing where we were like, damn, these guys are back. Device. Putting up, as you can see here, 1.42 rating, unbelievable. Stalv 1.52. He looked back and comfortable, which we didn't see at the RMR cycle out of Astralis. This was a really positive showing, and this is a really good sign now. If Astralis can become once again a playoff team with Device calling, and everybody looking comfortable. Bro had his moments. I give him his credit. Stown and Yabi both stepped up hugely. I mean, time and time again, when things are looking rough, they stepped up. And Stair, Device keeps singing this guy's praises. We've obviously covered him a bit in tier 2, but man, Astralis, if this is a thing for the future, I'm so happy for it.
Yeah, I think there's two things for me. Well, there's kind of three. Two serious things and one less serious, right? So I'll go with the two serious ones to begin with. I think that maybe a lot of people are scared of what Device is going to bring in a way. They don't quite know what to expect. And then it might also be a case of, they've not really seen it. There's no tape on IGL Device. So that's one thing to consider. I think very easy to just breeze over that point. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's a change. It's a bit of honeymoon and stuff like this. It can be difficult to read a team that ultimately has nothing to read, you know? So that's one point I think that we have to bear in mind. The second one that I think is much bigger and that could affect them into the future and whether this keeps up, whether this kind of form and performance keeps up, is the fact that it just looks like there's so much more buy-in from the rest of the team, you know?
Yeah.
The energy and the belief in these players, listening, selling it a bit more, you know, I think that they are behind Device.
Yeah.
To be honest. Whereas especially when Stown and Yabi came in, I think there was an energy of like they already had a pre-existing opinion on Blame F, interested to see what it's like to play under him, maybe a little bit more there for the fact that it's Astralis, and obviously they wanted this change. They want to play with Device. They didn't believe in Cadian anymore, you know, whatever the politics is behind them leaving Heroic. And then I think maybe something similar has happened into Astralis, which I think is actually another interesting conversation we'll probably never hear about because Astralis is going to be way better at locking things like that down. But it may well have been a case of, okay, well, we managed to oust Cadian a little bit. We also don't like playing under Blame F. Device doesn't seem to be on board with Blame F either. So we could potentially just get rid of him too. And, you know, they've really built a project that it might be, maybe I'm, you know, making it a little bit more malicious than it seems, but you know, we're going based on the history a little bit. They've built this project a bit more player based, and I think that they believe in Device much more than they did the Blame F system.
Sure.
There's arguments to be made strategically as well that I think Device is using himself a lot more. He's perhaps giving a bit more freedom to the other riflers because obviously it was Blame F, especially from a rifle perspective, that just wanted to steal everything, you know, good positions, nice spot in the pack on T side, you know, things like this, and playing quite safe but strong positions and roles on that CT side. So I think that this is something that will affect them into the future. So I'm kind of curious to see. It's a combo of the two things. And then the third thing, which, like I say, is a little less serious, I really want Device to stop hitting monitors, man. That's the only problem that I see with Astralis at the moment that irks me a little bit. I just don't get it, bro. I don't get it, you know?
Hit your desk.
That's what I'm thinking.
It's so much more satisfying. Like hitting a monitor, you know? It's kind of flimsy and it's like, you know, plasticky and it just shakes. But then like you get a good like bash of the desk, or like I have like, you know, my chair arms as well. They make a good thud, right? Like if I get like deleted, right, good old thud, you're like, okay, sick. But like, what are you like? First of all, the second you hit the monitor, you've like obviously set it up with your height and everything, and like which way you want it facing. Then you got to spend like, you know, 30 seconds getting it back in place. You just look like an idiot. Like just hit your desk. It's fine. Yeah.
And we're all sat here. If you break that monitor, we're all sat here like waiting.
That's 30 minutes.
You know. But I don't know, what is the policy on that? That's kind of what I'm interested.
He'll get fined if he broke it.
Obviously, he's not broken it. Yeah. But just giving it a smack, you know.
I don't think he gets fined for that. From my understanding, unless it breaks.
Sportsmanlike conduct, you know. I feel like he maybe should.
True.
Like he maybe should, mate. Where's the commissioner when you need him?
It was actually a big discourse. A lot of people were like talking about it.
Yeah.
Like it was a weirdly like there's a couple of tweets that really blew up because of it.
Yeah.
Like I think Trav did one saying like what are you doing essentially. Another guy called Hayes did one as well, which absolutely blew up as well. And it had like all these like you know, low key kind of weird Device fans like in the comments getting proper Larry about it. I don't know.
It's like I saw all these people being like, you know, oh, you've never played in competition, high-end competition. But it's like, you know, football for us, right, would be the biggest sort of parallel here sports-wise. And it's kind of just like taking the ball after, I don't know, you've just been fouled and you were like on goal, something like that, you
just
know,
leathering
whatever.
it.
Yeah, and just kicking it out of the arena or something, you know, or attempting to. He's not broken the monitors, but you know, something like that, or just, you know, it does happen sometimes. To be fair, yeah, like time wasting, throwing the ball away. And so even when there's a player like right next to you, you know what I mean, that kind of thing, when you've been caught offside or whatever. So it happens a little bit, but I feel like he's one of the only players that sort of does that. And then it's really weird as well, because you can see someone uploaded like clips of him doing it, right? You can see the cogs in his mind sort of whirring a little bit, that he's like, he really wants to lash out on the monitor. And then he kind of stops for a second. He's like, I'm going to hit the monitor, but I shouldn't hit it hard because I don't want to break it.
He pulls back.
Yeah, you can just see it. And then he's like, but I'm still going to commit. And it's like, in that second of thinking and making the decision and the moral dilemma, just smack your desk, your chair, like he said, you know. I don't know.
Desk's probably so much more satisfying. I guess the only other like downsides is if you smack your desk and like, you know, the guy next to you like shakes their aim, that'd be kind of funny. But like,
and we don't know, because I've never sat at one. I don't know if they're like all connected, and then the connections in between might be a little bit brittle. You know what I mean? So if you get it in the right spot, then you're gonna bring the whole desk down, which would be embarrassing. Anyway, sorry, I've just completely sidetracked this. I just wanted to mention that, because
either way,
it was annoying me.
A good showing out of them. I think even though we now know what's happened with VP, I still think actually a good win over VP as well. That like VP, even, you know, with Mia, were actually quite a difficult team to break down. They've always been quite hard to just play against, just because we know how they just slow the game down to like a bit of a grinding halt, and a lot of teams do struggle against them. But Astralis really didn't. They didn't show them any respect. That was good to see for them. And then obviously up in towards the playoffs, face off against FaZe again. This time it's playoffs FaZe. Carrigan back to calling his absolute best. Everybody stepping up in a big way as well. Frozen had his real moments. So that was back to where FaZe find the form and were able to kind of, you know, win in the revenge arc, so to say. But even still, semi-finals for Astralis, I think for a side who a lot of people were kind of memeing all of a week, 2 weeks ago around the major time when they announced Device IGL, they're pretty quiet now, because he's proved that he actually at least can make this team play well. Not that it's specifically his calls, but he's obviously given, or he even mentioned it at the HTV live show, saying he's given a lot of space back to individuals like Stown and Yabi, their roles that were kind of sort of half taken by Blame F. They've now got back basically their entire roles that they were playing at Heroic. So they're now comfortable. This is good, right? Having basically two of your most important rifles comfortable, your two big name signings back in the roles that make them big name players is exactly what you want to see. So good to them. Let's touch on a downer though. Let's go back over towards Group B. A downer. Cloud9. Whew. Sheesh. That was not good. The loss to FlyQuest was brutal. I'm right saying, was it 11 rounds in a row? Something along those lines. Or 12 rounds in a row. Was it? I think it was like 6-1 Cloud9, and then FlyQuest just ran through like the rest of it, like 12 rounds in a row, something ridiculous like that. That was one of the morning games that we weren't on, but we kind of were just waking up for it. And then, for Cloud9 dropping to the lower bracket, I'm not going to take too much out of the wild card game, because it's wild card. They had essentially like 3 stand-ins at that point, and one guy who had not played in like 2 years. But then, again against FaZe, kind of a bit of a no-show as well. This Cloud9 side, you know, obviously we now know they've gone through changes, but not for the betterment of them. They are in a really tricky spot. They desperately need an AWPer. It's so obvious that they're just like, it's not that the players are bad, so to say. It's just something's not quite clicking there, whether the team don't get on or whatever it is. Something is so off of Cloud9. And I think step number one, the thing that we've all been calling for, is an AWPer. So they've got to look towards signing somebody. Everybody likes to throw Manesti out there. It's not going to happen. There's no way G2 are letting him go. Stop being silly. His buyout is probably one of, if not the most expensive buyouts in all of competitive Counter-Strike now. He's also the best player in the world, so G2 are most definitely not letting him go. Stop being stupid. Or if they are, it means Cloud9 are coming with an absolutely outrageous sort of offer. I don't think it's going to happen. But then it means Cloud9 have got to look elsewhere. You got to look towards the tier 2. Ideas that can be thrown out there. A lot of people have been throwing out Zorte. I'm not a huge fan of that one. I think he isn't ready for tier 1 right now. The only player that I think slots in comfortably in my mind is probably Deco from Aurora.
Yeah, sure.
Only problem is apparently
vibes, man.
Apparently he's so difficult. He's such a difficult player.
the team already has problems. I think as
Yeah.
well, one of the big things with the money conversation is like, even if they do have the money or whatever, and again, Cloud9 as like an NA org, they've got interest in other games. I don't think that they are going to splurge like that, because for two reasons: it'll be a lot of money that he's up for, and B, I don't think it's the only issue. You know? I don't think just getting an AWPer in is going to fix this team. It is obviously the biggest band-aid or plaster if you're from England, but ultimately, I think that they have a lot more going on. It does just seem like the energy's kind of off a little bit. You know, Shiro and Axile as well. I think they had a few issues. The Gambit youngsters team into Gambit, into Cloud9 before change. There was always a little bit of something kind of mentally. You could see it in Shiro, a very frustrated player a lot of the time. You could see it now and in the past in Axile, a little bit sort of off, a little bit disjointed, like you know, people are saying depressed. I don't really want to use that word. I've just put it out there. I know that some people are saying that. It's like, I don't quite think so, but sometimes he just gets a little disconnected. Let's go with that, you know? And I think that that's something that you can see, like when you watch them play and when you watch them on camera, in particularly during a game. But, you know, for guys like us that have watched these guys for many, many years, you know, 4 or 5 years I've been following these players. When you watch them on the server, there are a few little things that just give you the idea of like, okay, once a game starts getting away from them, the heart is not there, you know? The passion is not there. You've got a double elimination bracket. Whatever, man. We'll get it in the lower bracket. But then you've got FaZe in the lower bracket, and it's like, oh shit, you know. Now we're gonna have to actually play the game, but it's just for survival. So it's like they're not present. Like the mindset, it feels like for some of these players is just not quite there. Like they'll still be there. They'll still want to win, obviously. But a lot of what goes on at the high level of the game, high level of competition, is going to be like subconscious, man. You know.
100%.
If you're just not into it out of the server, if you feel like the team's not performing well, you feel like it's not going well, etc., then you are just gonna check out even just a little bit, take your eyes off the ball for just a round or two, and that's like the game gone. So I think there are some real issues within the Cloud9 team. Perfecto, you know, doesn't really look to be putting up numbers for me in these types of games. Again, I'm not going to bring the rumor mill into it, but he doesn't seem to be fantastic either. Boomich is kind of chilling, but I think Boomich is a very aggressive, straightforward, straight talking kind of IGL. Maybe less so a leader of men type thing. And just kind of focusing in on the game and my way or the highway. I don't know that that's necessarily going to work out very well for them here, but it definitely does seem that Electronic was out of the door. I think what's happened here a little bit, we can now see with Pro League, is it will be a roster lock type thing. So I think Electronic has maybe shafted them a little bit, finished the talks with VP. All he's got to do is sign the dotted line, and then he's gone to Cloud9 and he said, you know, they're paying the money, whatever, I'm out. Sorry, you know, have fun. So I don't think Cloud9 have been able to field a replacement properly. And obviously, it puts them in a unique position as well. They've lost Electronic, who feels like one of the most consistent players and versatile players with a bit of IGLing experience now. But it's like, do we just get someone in? We've also got to get an AWP, you know. So you've got a bit of a double whammy of like, you've got to replace stats. You've also got to get an AWP in theory. Where do you go for that? Etc., etc. So it's a really difficult sort of look for Cloud9. I think for me, that is probably what has happened here. Is like the team is on a downward trajectory. Axile's towards, you know, the bottom end of the scoreboard, which is really not what we expect from him. So maybe as well, maybe Cloud9 management are looking at this and going, okay, this is potentially an opportunity for us to weed out a couple of these players. Like Boomich still believes Hobbit is still nice and consistent and a role player, and you know, no complaint from him. Does the interviews, lovely stuff, right? He seems to be very content here, but maybe not quite vocal enough to shut down some of the other personalities. What are we going to do? We maybe have to rebuild things ever so slightly, you know, and Axile numbers wise seems to be not there. Mindset wise seems to be a little out. Perfecto, kind of similar for me. He is more of a supportive element, but still, you know. So I think that there's big issues in Cloud9 for me. And yeah, I don't know, man. It's a shame. I called this a little bit when they came together. It was one of my predictions for CS2. Everyone was really excited when Shiro was still in. our good friend Freddie never put the video out, so I have no evidence for it. But I did say that Cloud9 as a team would be one of the more disappointing projects, and I think that's what's happened here. The mental cloud, the dark cloud around some of these players has just taken over a little bit, and they really do struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll finish things off with the final note, talking about the champions, FaZe. Good on them, right? FaZe have been, right, is it 8 finals in a row now they've been to in competition? So. It's absolutely bonkers statistic. Goes without saying, the best team in CS2 so far. No question marks about it, just the consistency the side have brought to the table, and all things considered, a really good run out of them. Required all the maps all the games, I say, in the playoffs, taking on Liquid 2-1. We kind of spoke about that a little bit earlier. Very good performance out of them. They set up in a big way. Again, Brokey putting up the numbers, as we've seen with him getting that MVP. Then the revenge arc against Astralis. That's a really cool game coming out of them. Astralis didn't really show up as much, it has to be said. I think they looked a little bit on the back foot, and I think Carrigan probably figured them out, and that because of that, they really didn't have maybe the structure in place to try and find a way back into that game. Yes, they got a map, but all things considered, I think FaZe had always felt like they had a grasp on that semi-finals, and then the grand finals, you hate to say it, right? When it comes down to it, MOUZ, it's their formidable foe. The only team that seems to be, the one that can really get a grasp on MOUZ at the moment, and FaZe, they decimated them, especially that second map. It was actually a really quick final, and this throws out one point I want to talk about, just tournaments in general. Obviously, it's not our decision, but we're allowed to voice an opinion. I think now that we're in MR12, IEMs should be best of 5s. They really should, because a grand final that's like under 2 hours, it doesn't really feel like it was a cool final. It's a really cool tournament, but I really wish it was like a best of 5. I think majors and IEMs should be best of 5s. Every other tournament, you can have your best of 3s, but even Blast, finals, that kind of thing. Those big S tier tournaments should be best of 5s, because we do get best of 5s elsewhere. But yeah, I don't know, having a best of 3 for this, it was like it was over so quickly.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think BO5s maybe should start to come in. It's difficult. I think what I will say, in a little bit of disagreement with you, is that BO5s have got to be used sparingly.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think maybe like an IEM Chengdu like this is not quite high enough in the stakes, but I think majors, Katowice, Cologne, then Fair. You've got 4 a year. I think that really ups the stakes, because you have these big tournaments, it's all a big lead up, play-ins are massively streamed now, and everyone's got most teams have got to play for a spot and whatnot. So I think that once you get to that final, if it's a 3-0, you're still getting some decent games.
True.
Still long enough in terms of a viewer experience, but also it's like, okay, Vitality, FaZe, G2, whoever it may be, were clearly the best team of this tournament.
Yes, yeah.
They've played very well the whole way through, lots of games, and then they get a 3-0. And then obviously if it goes to 4 or 5, the stakes, the tension, it's all increased, and we get all the Counter-Strike as it were. And I think, for a Katowice, for a Cologne, and indeed for a major, if we just do away with the show matches, like in terms of production time, it's not gonna increase, is it? If you just do on a Sunday a BO5, like what's the problem with that,
especially after this recent majors show match, which was, let's not be around the bush, probably the worst ever. I think
Chengdu one was better, man.
Yeah, it was.
They did a different map, and they did big chickens.
They did Santorini.
And go.
Well, the Thera now, but so that's how a show match should be. You shouldn't have Kiebi full sweating, his GG How trial there on the big stage. It was quite cringe, it has to be said. I think ESL and Blast normally done them quite well with the show matches. It feels like there's at least a thought process behind them. I feel like with PGO's one, it was actually just like, we should probably just do a show match, and then be like, right, Ecstatic are still around because they live here, and then we'll get some Danish people. But they didn't really ask, I would have liked to have seen the bigger guns, but it was decent. But I think you're right. I don't really care for show matches. I don't think many people really care for show matches. The only show match I've actually ever really cared for was like one of the old Blast ones where it was like, they had the smoke, in the booths, and like, blindfold and that kind of thing. Those are quite funny. But like they obviously, I think they're quite difficult to code, and I'm right in saying kind of can't really do them in CS2 right now. So it's probably for at the moment, it's probably not even worthwhile doing a show match. Nobody really cares. We'd much rather see a big best of 5 grand final than a show match in a best of 3, is my opinion. But as you got any finishing remarks, that's basically Chengdu from us. It was actually a pleasure to work it. It was really good fun. Share about some of the technical issues. Hopefully next time you don't see those. We didn't see those, so the cars were very clean our side, which is really annoying. So some of these moments as well, we finished, we're like, oh, that was sick, man, that was sick. And then go back and
you're talking over me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm underwater talking in a bottle.
Yeah, I'm Jarvis in Spider-Man's helmet. Not Spider-Man, Iron Man's helmet.
Iron Man,
yeah.
I mean, it unfortunately happens. I think, again, we can't even really speak to it all that much, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I think just the fact that there were many different places that production were coming from were obviously remote, and then, you know, studios in one spot, and then obviously over in Chengdu, not done it for a while. The infrastructure going to be very different from Europe, for example.
Yeah.
Most of our events and things. So, you know, it does unfortunately happen, but I think, we'll get through it. They'll figure it out, you know what I mean? So by the time that we're there next year, it should hopefully be a bit cleaner. But yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. Very, very solid, sort of, like I said earlier, product from yourself and I. Some nice moments. It's really nice to, you know, get those big spots that feel like they have stakes. You can really get into the game. And then instead of quick and easy trades, because everyone's sort of on the same kind of level, you get Muncie or Frozen finding a 1v3 type scenario, you know, which just allows you to throw in a few lines and really, really, really get into it. So hopefully the first of many for us. I think we're pretty happy and just enjoying the moment of like being involved and getting on it a bit more, you know. I think it'll be good fun in future.
Exactly. Hopefully you see us on an IEM or a B stream or something. Even a LAN, we wouldn't say no to one of those. I'll tell you that for free. Either way, ladies and gents, we're going to say goodbye. Thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure. We'll bring them back with another one of these, maybe like pre-Pro League, do a little preview type vibe. Next big event on the calendar. And I guess after that, it's probably Blast London, if I'm right in saying. So yeah, we'll do some stuff like that. But either way, take care. Thank you for joining us. See you soon.